I'm going to walk you through just a few examples that I've picked up on the streets. The first one is as blatant as you can get. I don't know if it'll show up full on the screen, but what does it say? Socialism beats fascism. And what's critical in all of this is to look at the fine print. And who is it that endorsed this message? None other than the Democratic Socialists of America, which elected Zoran Mamdani. Well, we think, oh, that's innocuous enough. But what they are aligned with is this group called the Workers' World Party. They are self avowed communists. And the messages that you're going to see here on these first signs are ones that folks will have been familiar with over the last couple of years after the October 7th attack by Hamas. Israel, apartheid, and genocide, funded by the U.S. So the U.S. is the enemy here. And these are organizations that are working with lovely sounding names like Code Pink, an organization that we'll talk more about. But here you can see that they are messaging to go after one of America's allies, Israel. So these are signs from the last couple years. So I want to take us now into how this messaging and the propaganda of these organizations have morphed. Just last week, I picked up this sign on their National Day of Shutdown against ICE. From DC to Minneapolis, stop ICE terror. So now the federal government is associated with terrorism. So an insurgency uses language in order to win popular support. That's so critical. And we can see this happening. The narrative war is so critical to an insurgency. And again, you have to look at the small print because down here at the bottom is the Party for Socialism and Liberation. This is the clear ideological connective tissue between these organizations. And then what we have to do next, of course, is follow the money.
Forgive me, Asra, for just one moment. As I was just sending a text, I often produce the show as I conduct the show. And I'm going to be honest with you and the audience. The text that I just sent to both my television show staff and to my digital show staff reads as follows: holy shit, this is good. I just sent that text to both staffs because what you are showing me is, but you're illustrating this. You are holding the signs. You just held up to me four signs. And let's talk about the signs for a moment before we go deeper. Okay.
Great.
Big
Perfect.
words.
Thank you so much,
top
Will.
line on each sign. Well, we're just being real, having a conversation here. Okay, big words, top sign. That's the ideology. That's the salesmanship part. That is the catchphrase. And that is where the casual American out there just sees an image running across their television screen on CNN and thinks, yes, you know, maybe I hold up your random sign, you know, whatever one it may be. Yes, that's a feeling. That's something I might be able to identify with. But that, first of all, is incredibly honed. The big top line thing.
See?
And then
no kings. This is one illustration.
You've got one right there. Let's see that.
Yeah. Who wouldn't agree with the idea?
Yes.
No kings. I mean, America was formed against, you know, the British crown. And so they are borrowing from the American Revolution now with this handmade sign, but we'll continue to follow the money and follow the signs. But look then, they just crumple up the American flag, right? This is not how I treat the American flag. This is what they do with it. Staple it to this sign. And just like you said, Will, it's attractive to people, right? They make it so that they will win popular support. And that's why in Afghanistan and Pakistan, one of the clear elements of our strategy was about winning hearts and minds, because that's what the insurgency had captured.
Okay. All right. Now, but by the way, no kings is one thing, because to your point, everybody could identify with that. But there's increasingly radical language in those signs as well. You know, to the point where one is, I believe one of them you held up said America is the empire behind genocide, something like that. So it's like a sliding scale of signage of top lining this, taking you further and further into the radical ideology. But just as interesting and just as important is the bottom line, as you described it, the fine print. It is the Democratic Socialist of America. It is the Workers' World Party. Who are they, Asra?
So they are a global network of self-avowed socialists, Marxist, Leninists, communists. If our viewers and listeners don't know the ideological differences between these different organizations, it's okay, because they all morph into one after the other.
So is the vision like some reincarnation or a second bite at the apple of what was failed or with the Soviet Union? Or is it like is always the case when it comes to communism, some utopic vision that's never been fully yet realized, but they will be the handmaidens to this realization. They will deliver this communist utopia.
Well, what they talk about in their own language, Will, is that we are in a new Cold War. That's the language that they use. And I completely hear you. You know, we thought the Cold War was over. I lived through the fall of the Berlin Wall. I saw, the Soviets escape Afghanistan. And what I witnessed as a young reporter was also the communist Sandinistas, in Nicaragua, the regimes that were trying to be installed by that Soviet and communist mentality. My native India was aligned with the Soviet Union through the 80s, and it called itself the non-aligned movement. So those are all terms that I thought were in history. But Will, I watch their propaganda hours upon hours of binge watching when I'm not watching you. And they are all talking that language again. Sorry, but they're talking about the global South now. That's where they put Venezuela, Cuba, and all of these nations that they want to control.
Okay, I'm bouncing around, Asra, but I think I can piece it together in my head. And by the way, I'm being open with you and the audience. I just said, please fly Asra to Dallas to spend an entire hour with me on the Will Cain Show. I don't know if you'll fly with those signs, because
Absolutely.
those are pretty embarrassing signs to be carrying under your arm.
No, I've got a system. I have to, because I'm going to show you. This is exactly how they do it. I'm going to show you a small version of it. See, this is how they make their signs. So this is the Minneapolis one, and they're very proud of this now. They print it out, they staple it, they have this long paper, they staple it together, front and back, and then they staple it to these sticks. And so for my TSA approved signs, I unstaple them from the sticks in order to be able to pack them in a big suitcase. So I've got them coming to your studio, Will.
No, here's the thing that you're exposing, okay, and it deserves even more exposure, I think, and we're going to continue in this conversation to do so. Look, I'm a firm believer that the news washes over people. It doesn't seep in. It doesn't soak. We don't understand the deeper layers of the news. We often do the news on third base without understanding how you got to third base, what happened on first and second base. And what you've done now is you're digging into something that's washing over people. These protests in Minneapolis, these signs that we see. And when it washes over you, you're like, these are some very passionate people who really believe that, perhaps through mass hysteria, ICE is really mean. But what you're showing is, no, there is a deeper, stick your rudder into the water. There's a deeper current here. And maybe those mass hysteria people are there, but they're being co-opted by people who have a much bigger plan.